I'm Paul Cram, joined today by Casey E. Lewis.
And not blinking there at the end of the line because the editor can't use that shot because the actor's closed his eyes. It's just those little
Right.
things that an actor would go, what? And then once you're introduced to that perspective, it's like, oh, wow, this is a whole new world.
Casey relocated to the Twin Cities from Los Angeles, where he lived for 15 years. During that time, he worked on USA Network's Colony, Showtime's Masters of Sex, Transparent on Amazon, and YouTube Red's Do You Want to See a Dead Body, as well as multiple independent short films and features. In addition to voicing characters in video games and web, radio, and TV spots, Casey has appeared on camera in commercials for Nissan, Chevrolet, and Best Buy. Casey's Twin Cities theater credits include working with the Guthrie Theater, History Theater, Yellow Tree Theater, Theater de la Jeune Lune, Frank Theater, and Park Square Theater. We're going to dive in today to some of the things that Casey knows about the SAG-AFTRA Foundation. Here we go. So you and I, just so people have a reference point, like you and I are both members of SAG-AFTRA, but our conversation today, we are not speaking on behalf of SAG-AFTRA. We're speaking on behalf of ourselves as actors with some experiences who we happen to be members. So,
Definitely.
yeah. And it's been a good couple of years working with you, with on SAG-AFTRA stuff and things like that. But for our conversation today, I just wanted to dive in. Can you tell me a little bit? You moved to LA and you lived there how long?
Yeah, moved there in 2002 and back here, moved there from here in 2002 and came back at the end of 2017. So I was there 15 years.
Awesome. Awesome. I bet you have a lot of stories about all of that.
Yes.
At what point, for the purposes of our conversation here, correct me, how did you get connected into the SAG-AFTRA Foundation? What did that look like for you?
I was in Los Angeles. Both my wife and I were there pursuing acting. Terry Deaver is her name, and we'd been there, I don't know how many years, not that long. And we heard about the Sag Foundation as it was then, prior to merger. Heard about the Sag Foundation and their casting access program. And that's the program where they have casting directors come in for a workshop, and it's like 15 to 20 actors, and you get a chance to do the Q&A, find out how their office works, demystify the whole process of that. You get the opportunity to read with them or with another actor in front of them, and show them what you got, because casting offices are different than what they used to be, where actors could be seen more easily. So this kind of again demystified the process and allowed actors to be seen by casting directors. So I had heard about that program first, and then started attending their events and heard about their conversations events where they'll do sometimes a screening and then a conversation with an actor or two afterwards, or they'll have just like a 2-hour conversation with an established actor about their career, and various other programs. So I attended those for years, and one day out of the blue, got a call from the executive director asking for an interview. I had attended enough events where I knew the program directors by name. And
gotcha.
And at one time
Gotcha.
I had asked, I said, you guys ever hiring? And so my resume and name made it to the executive director when they were actually looking to fill a position, and did an interview and got hired as their director of special projects. And that meant everything that didn't fall under a category already fell to me. And that's how I got employed there, and how I started attending their events. So when I was in Los Angeles, I attended Sag Foundation events prior to being employed, during the time I was employed, and then even after I was employed there.
And then even after.
Yeah.
So back it up for me just for one smidge,
Yeah.
because we're in the Twin Cities, and we're both members of SAG-AFTRA. So what that looked like is a little bit different than my experience with them, which is cool. But how did so you heard about them? How did you go to these? I'm assuming these were all in person events at that time?
Yeah, yeah. In Los Angeles, they actually didn't have a home proper. They shared offices in the what people refer to as the SAG-AFTRA building now,
Okay,
but Museum Square was what it was at the time, and they shared offices with SAG. And they would do events at different places depending on what the event was. Like a
cool.
school, there was a film school there on La Brea. Oh my gosh, where as a conservatory where they had the casting events. But yeah, they were live events, and they've since because of technology and because of COVID, they've since been able to and because the change in the industry, everything is virtual now. I don't want to get
Right.
ahead of our conversation, but now they do events virtually. But yeah, they were back then. They were in LA in person, and this was before they were doing events in New York, which they
And
do
that's
now, of course.
I'm sure most actors that are listening are probably, drooling as I am, because I mean, to be able to do specifically, like you had mentioned, the casting access with a casting director in person, like how cool is that to get your feet into that world?
Yeah,
Yeah.
it's
Uh,
it's a great it is an incredible opportunity to see how the industry works from the casting director's perspective. But because their involvement in production sees so much in the pre-production aspect of it, because they see so much and how projects come together, it's an incredible opportunity for actors to see a perspective that they just don't get the opportunity to see, and find out, just in the simple question, why doesn't an actor get cast? Why don't I get the job? Will I ever hear if I don't get the job? They can just give you the realities of those situations. And so it's if anything, you can walk away from it as an actor saying, okay, if I didn't get the job, I at least know it's not because I'm a bad actor. It might be because I'm taller than the lead.
oh, there you go.
Yeah,
Right.
yeah. So
Right.
so it,
Right.
it helps you understand how the casting process works and the actors involvement. And this is specific to casting access, and the actors involvement in the casting process, what their responsibility, what their job is going to a casting director's office,
Mhm.
whether it be brick and mortar or virtually, what
Right.
their expectations are. And what their expectations are after that. With if you don't get a call, you don't get a call. It's not because they didn't like you. It's because you just weren't right for this role, whether it be the casting director's decision or the showrunner's decision or the writer or the director, whomever is up that chain of command who
That
makes the
shame.
decision.
Yeah. And I mean, we're touching a lot on the casting access piece.
Yeah, yeah.
What are some of in addition to that? Like, I know I believe, if I'm not mistaken, because I have taken, I've taken in the last couple of months a lot of the offerings,
Yeah.
but you would be able to speak to this way more than I, because you worked there as the director of special events. Can
That
you give me?
changed.
Did it change?
Yeah.
Uh, well, then two questions. Can you give me kind of a little bit of a scope of like
Uh,
what are their offerings, and then also how did that change, and what did that continue on with your story?
yeah, yeah. So the SAG Foundation, SAG-AFTRA Foundation, I should say. When I worked for them, they were the SAG Foundation. After merger, AFTRA had a foundation, SAG had a foundation. They finally merged those after the SAG-AFTRA merger. So now it is the SAG Foundation. I'm going to refer to them in the rest of this conversation as the foundation.
Cool.
So the foundation has lots of programming and benefits for actors, not just industry educational specific with casting access, with their the business, what they call it, which is basically subjects on the business of acting, whether it be how to do your resume, how to do your headshot, how to market yourself, how to understand your type and your branding, those types of classes. Self-taping. They also have a voiceover lab, which are physical locations in Los Angeles and New York, but SAG-AFTRA actors can also reach out to those physical locations and get tips and assistance on their home recording setup. And obviously with the world the way it is, you can participate in these events virtually. What else? Oh, the Conversations program, which is, again, sometimes they'll do a screening of a television show or an episode of like a pilot episode or a season 1 episode, and then they'll have a conversation with some of the actors. 1, 2, maybe even the director or writer will come in, or they'll do a screening of a film and do a similar type of conversation afterwards. And then also in that Conversations program, if I remember correctly, if they still classify all this as conversations, they'll bring in an actor like Anthony Hopkins to do a career retrospective, or Kate Blanchett.
Absolutely.
And do like a 2-hour conversation. And not to interrupt this part of the discussion, but I do want to say before I forget, anybody out there listening, you can find the SAG-AFTRA channel on YouTube. And whether or not you are a member of SAG-AFTRA, this information is accessible to you. You can see the archived events that they've posted to their YouTube channel and take advantage of what has been said in the past, and grow and learn from that. But they also do.
No, I just was going to kind of reiterate, because what you're talking about, like those conversations and things like that, I've dived into them, and it's wonderful that they're available to everyone, because not only is it interviews with really established actors and performers, there's panels where it's agents talking about how do you get an agent and how does that work and things like that. And I love it because it's all available right now on YouTube, and you can go and watch it.
Yeah, thanks for mentioning those panel discussions. I missed that. They do have panel discussions with casting directors, with agents and managers, where they all talk about, how you can be seen by them. What's the best way to reach out to them? What are the things you need to focus on with your career? And let's say if it's auditioning or self-taping or whatever, they do have wonderful panel discussions. But I will say, in regards to those panel discussions, you are going to get information from working industry professionals who are directly involved in the business in either Los Angeles or New York. So they are at the heart of this. They do this every day. They have their finger on the pulse of what's happening in the industry. So you're going to be getting some very candid information when you watch this programming. Listeners, viewers will probably get some information where they go, oh, well, that was kind of harsh. But when you are in a competitive market like Los Angeles or New York, and quite frankly, now that we have a tax incentive where films will be enticed to come to Minnesota, and we will be able to hopefully compete for those roles, we will be competing with actors from Los Angeles, New York, Georgia, Chicago. So it's going back and watching these archived events is a good education and preparation for Twin Cities actors to understand what they're up against and the level at which they need to be presenting and auditioning themselves, whether it's through their headshots and resumes or through their actual audition techniques, and understanding that process and the expectations that casting directors will have from them. Watching these types of events, they're going to understand what those expectations are, so they can live up to them, so they can up their game to be able to compete at that level if they want to seriously be in contention for those types of roles that come to town.
Yeah. Oh, absolutely. Absolutely. It's reminding me of that age old actor thing, like, they didn't cast me. And it's like, Well, they didn't cast you because maybe you didn't know what you were doing.
Possibly, yeah.
Possibly, or
Yeah.
or they didn't cast you because you're 6'5" and they, all those things. But yeah, there's correct me if I'm wrong. There's somewhat of a scope and sequence to the educational offerings. What I mean by that is it's like there's like we're listing a lot of different things that are offered, but there's a logic to it. There isn't just
Oh,
it's
yeah.
not just random.
Yeah, it's not just random. I know in particular to the casting access events, there is a scope there. There are events that are tailored for the beginning level, the intermediate level, and the more advanced level. There are, like if you want to take a video editing class, it's kind of the same. There's an intro, and there's, I believe there's an intermediate and a more advanced. So it is tailored for actors who, now that self-taping is the way of the industry. Before the pandemic, it was
Yeah.
something that they did in Los Angeles and New York, and it was slowly filtering its way to the Midwest. Now everybody needs to be able to do that. They have video editing classes that you can do for those actors, performers who it is completely foreign to them. How do I record the audition? What are the expectations of the quality of the room I'm in? How do I get it to there? How do I get it in the computer? How do I get it to the timeline? All those very basic steps. They've got, class for that, and then more advanced type stuff, or they'll touch on the advanced type stuff later in that same session.
Well, and there's some of the classes and some of the class offerings that I've noticed too. I was like, this would be handy. I'm not a broadcaster. I don't work in broadcast, but I'm assuming that some of this would actually tap into.
Oh, definitely.
To that as well.
Yeah, definitely. I actually had a conversation recently with an old colleague of mine who's still there and heads the performer programs about that very subject. And the foundation does not only have opportunities for performer members. They also have some of the non-performance related benefits that they offer is emergency assistance. They also have a scholarship program. When the foundations merged, the scholarship program that AFTRA had and the scholarship program that AFTRA Foundation and the Sag Foundation scholarship programs, now they have two scholarship programs. So
nice.
Members can take advantage of that. So frankly, broadcasters can take advantage of emergency assistance, the scholarship program, and if they're in a situation where they need to up their game or make improvements to their recording systems that they use at home or in the field, they can reach out to the voiceover lab helpline and talk to them about those opportunities, with getting their mic options, getting the analog to digital done, doing the recording itself, working with the software that they use. They can also take advantage, broadcasters can also take advantage of that through the foundation.
No, it's fantastic. I mean, I'm loving all of it. I do want specifically for you, because I'm curious. So you had the title Director of Special Events, and that morphed into what?
Yeah, Director of Special Projects. I guess I was the goalie for any program that is not anything that came up that was not an established program. I was kind of the catch-all.
Yeah, the catch-all guy. Okay.
But not long after I started there, a woman who was tasked with the responsibility of overseeing the construction on the Actors Center, and I'll explain what that is in a sec. She was pregnant, and she could not be around a construction site because of hazards and such.
I would assume, yeah.
And so somewhere in the mix, or in the process, the executive director had identified in me skills that she felt I could apply to being a construction project manager of the Actors Center. Now, the Actors Center, I believe they've titled it different things now that after my departure, but the Actors Center at that time was a screening room where we would hold our live events, the Conversations and the Life Raft event, but now it's called The Business. It was a computer lab, and also the casting access room where the classroom where the casting directors would do their workshops. And then later on, we added the Don LaFontaine voiceover lab. So
Sweet.
yeah, so basically there was this space on the mezzanine level at the SAG-AFTRA building that had just been vacant for so long. And the executive director at the time, Marcia Smith, had saw the deal that could be done in this space. You know, other people didn't want it, but she saw what we could do with it. And we went in and made it into a gem. We turned a sow's ear into a silk purse, and
Nice.
made a beautiful screening room. And like I said, all the other things. And then later on, when some voiceover performers came to us after Don LaFontaine had passed away, they came to us and said, "We'd like to do a voiceover lab. We'd love to help you if the foundation is interested. We'd like to establish a voiceover lab for voiceover performers in Don LaFontaine's name." And there was a space that I knew of just on the other side of where our Actors Center ended that we turned into the Don LaFontaine voiceover lab. And then after that, they built an Actors Center or a screening room and a voiceover lab in the New York area. But until then, the Sag Foundation had not had a space all its own. And I was happy to be an instrumental part in making that happen, giving them a home for their events.
No, that's really, I mean, it's interesting, the history of that and how that all came into play. And I mean, I'm obviously impressed. It's the skill set too. I'm like, okay, so you're working with construction crews and things to get that.
It was
into
wild.
place.
It was wild working with a lot of different, our general contractor and the subcontractors, plus the theater designer, and then with the voiceover lab, we had a studio designer, and basically, you know, with the skills that I had, the organizational skills, and being able to look at a blueprint and knowing what that was, and managing and organizing, just saw it through. And then after that, I became the Actors Center director and oversaw the space with a staff of 5 wonderful people.
Oh, that's
with on the Actors Center.
That's so cool.
Yeah,
Well,
it was fun.
and something that I wanted to say too, specifically for us here in the Twin Cities, like I want to say up to 2020, if I remember correctly, the offerings through the foundation, there were things that were happening. You could access them, but because of everything going so virtual in the last 2 years, you know, there's so much available to me, to you, to everybody across any local, actually, through the foundation. And like I'm still envious though of that space that you're describing.
It's incredible. It's incredible. But as far as what's available to actors now, again, I'll stress people, performers, actors who and broadcasters, if they're interested as well, who do not live on either the coast, LA, New York, can take advantage of the YouTube archived events on their on the SAG-AFTRA channel. But,
well, and actually, can you clarify for me, like pretend I'm completely green and don't know anything, which sometimes I don't. Can you explain to me what is available to, like, what do I have access to if I'm pre-union, and what do I have access to if I'm union? Like there's, because we're pointing towards a difference. And can you explain, like, walk me through, like, even like how do I access if I've never accessed some of that?
Okay, so just to get this out of the way, anyone can access the information on their SAG-AFTRA YouTube channel, both members and pre-members. If you want to access current programming, like take a workshop on self-taping, or how to do a good competitive headshot. You need to be a member, SAG-AFTRA member, in good standing. You should go to the SAG-AFTRA website. I believe it's SAG-AFTRA.Foundation. I'm not sure, but search it in your
Yes.
Google.
Yes.
So go to the website. You need to essentially register to take events, to be able to access the calendar and sign up for events. And that's as simple as it is. They'll go through, you'll go through a vetting process. And then you will be able to take those events, those business events. If you, and those are the ones that they offer online, the virtual events that they offer. The live events in New York and Los Angeles, unless you're actually out there once we get out of this pandemic situation and can gather safely in those areas. As a member, if you are visiting either of those areas, you could go to those events. Just register for them online and go to those events. With the casting access events, those are the casting director events. There's you got to go a little bit further to do that. There's an extended process for that. You actually have to register for that separately, and that's an even further vetting process. But that also entails submitting your headshot, submitting your resume, which you would not do for the initial setup of just attending the virtual events. And again, those opportunities are available to SAG-AFTRA members in good standing.
And I just have to say this because I've done I've done one of those recently through the casting access, and like it's so worth those extra steps, I guess, or whatever, because the casting director, he looked at my headshot, he gave me feedback, and he was like, you might want to think about blah blah blah, and he glanced at my resume and he was like, and it was really valuable insight.
Yeah, I can see totally how that would be valuable, because I mean, you are an established actor here in the state of Minnesota. You've worked in Minnesota. When jobs come to town, Paul Cram will normally get an audition for it, because you have,
yes, hopefully
you have the experience. So when they flip over your headshot and look at the resume or do it online, they're going to go, oh, this guy's got some experience. Let's see what he looks like. He looks like what we're looking for. I want to see this guy. So for you, an actor who has worked outside of Minnesota, but predominantly works in Minnesota, to be able to get the opportunity to hear what a Georgia casting director, New York or LA casting director sees in how you present, that's gold, because that helps you up your game.
It helps me up my game. It helps, I feel like it helps everybody. Like I'll turn it on you, Casey, like coming to this market and, returning to Minnesota and, from LA is a different beast from the Twin Cities. The Twin Cities is a different beast from Georgia. Like,
oh yeah,
I've had the pleasure of talking to a casting director in Georgia, and I was like, oh, that's not really what I hear from LA. It's just, they're different markets and it's a different beast. So it's really helpful to be able to tap into that and be like, well, what works for, what is that casting director seeing when they're looking at my headshot and when they're looking, I'm interacting with them. And it's making me a better performer.
Yeah, and I can totally see that and completely understand it. And it also helps actors. I would expect it had this response to this. You had this reaction that it helps you understand more how the business works, so you as an industry professional can perform, not just as an actor performing, but as a participant in the industry, perform with a greater opportunity with a greater understanding, but a greater opportunity for success.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah,
Yeah.
that's what I found. The foundation delivered for me when I went to any of the events, pre working there, during my time there, and then after. And frankly, after I came back here at the end of 2017, and didn't attend any events until right at the beginning of the pandemic, because I wanted to keep in touch with what was going on, because everything was shut down. I did a
Right.
voiceover event at the beginning of the pandemic, and then most recently started attending some of the other events, casting access events, and did another couple of the business events, to find out, as an actor who had lived in Los Angeles for 15 years and knew what what was current, as far as what you need to know, if headshots were leaning this way, if auditions were leaning that way. I started attending some more events to see, after being gone 4 years, 3 or 4 years, to
So
see what was
good.
current.
Yes.
Yeah,
Yes. Oh, Casey, I love that so much, because it's that thing. And I know that I'm guilty of this too, where I get comfortable and it's like, well, this is what I've always done. This is what works. And it's like,
yeah,
no, 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 no. The last 2 years,
yeah.
the way things are cast is different.
Oh yeah.
The virtual online, the callbacks, that kind of thing. So yeah, yeah, it's exciting to me, uh, hearing you say you're kind of, it's almost like you're using the classes as a barometer in a way of like, what's
Oh
going
yeah.
on? Where am I
Yeah,
at?
yeah. See, this is my creative recording space for self tapes. When when we moved to Los Angeles, everything was analog back then. You were still getting the auditions through the hard copy of Backstage, those that were open to folks. And gradually that got to digital. But even when you could see the auditions online, you still had to submit a paper copy of your audition. So we experienced the change from analog to digital. And in that, there was self-taping. So I learned the ropes of self-taping in Los Angeles and knew what the expectations were, that a casting director would have when they saw a self-tape. So I outfitted myself with that. Would record my own, and then record some for friends, and then started a business, and then brought all of that equipment here when we moved, and have
Yeah.
self-taped since, and still record other people. But one of those classes I took within the last month or so, as we stretching and yawning, and now we're getting out of this pandemic, wanted to get the pulse of, okay, how have self-tapes changed since I was in Los Angeles? And thankfully, the change has been more people have needed to learn how to do it. But everything I've got as far as my system goes is on par with what an actor needs to accomplish with a self-tape. Actually, even more so. I'm a bit of a nut that way. I want it to look good and sound good,
Yes.
and because there is the understanding that everybody needs to be able to do that. Casting directors and casting decision makers are so much more forgiving maybe than they used to be. But essentially, what it comes down to is you have to be seen, you have to be heard. And yeah, I just wanted to see if my setup was still delivered.
Yeah. What's the baseline? Like,
Yeah,
yeah. What is that? And I recently took one through Casting Access, which was and I do mostly film and TV. I have done theater, but I haven't done it for a while. But
right.
and it was a monologue class, and it was
Oh, cool.
so fun, because I was like, all right, let's see where this lands and stuff.
Yeah.
It was so cool to be able to participate and see what other performers were doing, and to see where I was landing again, sort of like, where do I fall in all this? And it was heartening. It was like, oh, okay, good.
Yeah,
And to get the feedback and things like that.
exactly.
Yeah. So I find it wildly interesting. I'm cutting you off. What were you going to say?
No, I was going to say a couple of things. My brain's having a fight with itself. I would suggest, just because it comes to mind. One thing I was going to say is the casting director event that I did, which I was surprised. I was doing it through my computer as opposed to my virtual audition setup. And I was kicking myself afterwards because in that casting director event, the casting director was asking actors, is this normally how you do your virtual auditions? Because in addition to having the opportunity to read and get feedback on the choices that you've made and a redirect, which is what you would get in a casting director's office, these casting directors, or this particular casting director, was taking the time with actors to say, is this your virtual recording setup? You might want to try this or that. So you also get that gem of input. But for those, the other thing that came to mind was there's a guy that I was fortunate enough to know, and we're friends on Facebook still. And I met him through his now wife. He's an editor. So this is a good example of what actors can get through the foundation, through their programming. He's an editor. His name is Jordan Goldman. And he's won awards and has edited for shows that people would recognize. But he wrote a book called How to Avoid the Cutting Room Floor.
I love that book. I've read it.
It's awesome. It's a short read, and he basically, because his partner, his wife, is an actor, was an actor. I don't know if she's still performing, but he knows actors, and he saw a gap that kind of needed to be filled as far as the actor understanding the editor's role to, one, improve their work, but also improve their work ending up in the final cut with tips that he has as far as what they can do. And he kind of breaks it down with acting terms.
Yeah.
And it's such a simple read. Jordan is a great guy. His book is out there, hard copy or Kindle as well. But he lays it out so simply. But a lot of the key things you find in there from the actor's perspective is add to your performance or help shape your performance to improve the likelihood of a good take, making it into the episode or film. Even if it's a matter of if you've got a blink and you're delivering your last line and not blinking there at the end of the line because the editor can't use that shot because the actor's closed his eyes. It's just those little things that an actor would go, what? And then once you're introduced to that perspective, it's like, oh, wow, this is a whole new world. So for actors interested in being cast in on-camera projects, whether it's episodic or film, hearing a person in that position speak to that subject for the actor to better understand how they can improve their odds is a gold mine of information. And that's just one subject, the subject of editing, that these types of conversations that the foundation offers actors.
Which is it's like you said, it's gold. Like that is. And it excites me too. I mean, we'll wind this down and wrap it down, but I just have to say, like, I'm so excited to think about this and think about the education that's available for myself and for you and for everyone. I feel like as a film TV performer, unlike stage, film and TV, there isn't a ton of time to rehearse. There's not generally all those types of things. And I'm like, what I love about what we're talking about, and specifically the things that the foundation is offering, is it is giving some space and some time and some attention to those things, like what you're talking about with his conversation about how to stay off the cutting room floor. But what I love about it is it's like it's giving me spaces to also to practice some of those things. Like, okay, I need to not blink at the end of this. Well, okay, that's fine to do at home alone, but it's a whole nother game when I can do that with a casting director. It's exciting.
Yeah, a great, I'll add to that. That's an incredible point. um, having the opportunity to read for a casting director in a workshop setting.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm not just talking about one casting director. I'm talking about when I went recently back and looked at my account of the events that I had attended. I was shocked at, well over 100, maybe 150, I can't remember, and a
Ooh.
lot of those were casting director events. And you hear some information repeated, you learn new information, you learn specific information from this casting director, but all of that adds up. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 10 casting director events. You are given the opportunity to be seen by the casting director. There is no opportunity. It is not an opportunity to be hired. It is an opportunity to learn from this person, but you can learn from this person in what would be for us in the Midwest, in Minnesota, a virtual casting room. You have the opportunity to learn in that casting room, so you don't make those mistakes in the classroom that you might make in the actual casting room.
Yes.
So you get all of those errors out of the way and can, as a professional, a practicing professional, be able to deliver the goods more, the possibility of you being able to deliver the goods effectively in the actual job opportunity scenario is improved, because you've got all of those mistakes out of the way. To learn to look off this much of the camera as opposed to this much of the camera. It's just little
Right.
things like that, but there's a wealth of other stuff that you can learn in the classroom, so you don't make those mistakes on the job being the audition.
Exactly.
Yeah.
I don't have anything at the moment to add to that, Casey. This has been really fun. Is there anything else that you want people to know or to think about before we let them go?
I would just reiterate again, go to the gold mine that is the YouTube channel that they offer. I know they have, before the internets, they were doing their conversation events and simply recording them. They actually went and looked at the archive, the tape archive, and digitized some of those. So they've got some older events, but they've got anything that we were doing in the Actors Center and streaming events. They've got that stuff. Any of the stuff that they had recorded going back to prior to my employment there, and during that 9 years that I was there, and then after that, they have a wealth of information.
Yeah.
So take advantage of that. But then, for those members out there, members in good standing, go to the SAG-AFTRA Foundation website. Register so you can attend their virtual events. Keep an eye on their calendar. Go to the calendar. What I used to do before I was employed there, and then even after, I would make it a point to go to the calendar and look at it at least once a week to see what's listed there. So you can find out, oh wow, can I attend this event? Is this open to a broader audience? Make it register, start attending the events, register for casting access, get your headshot, go through that vetting process that takes a little bit longer, get your headshot, a current headshot on there, get your resume on there, start attending those casting director events virtually, and just take advantage of this opportunity, because before the pandemic and our industry changed to where it relies so much on the virtual. The foundation was more so a coastal thing, east or west coastal thing, but now their programming is virtual, and it's open to members across the states, and you would be foolish to not take advantage of that, especially if you're in a market that offers a tax incentive and has projects come through that you can actually be in the running for.
If anyone wants more information, you can go to the SAG-AFTRA. It's SAG-AFTRA.Foundation, their website. You can also find out more information about Casey online at CaseyELewis.com. I'm going to spell that for you: CaseyELewis.com. SEYELEWIS.com, CaseyELewis.com. Additionally, if you want to find out more information about myself, you can go to my website, which is IamPaulCram.com. Thanks, everyone. Let's keep being kind to each other.